I had done the howling for Dan Black. And then E.T. came out, and so when Cujo came along, Dan called and asked me if I would like to have first crack at it. And I read the script, and of course it's like the tour de force role for a woman. And I got to scream and do all that stuff that I love to do. So that's how it came about for me.
I think the producers of the movie saw me in As the World Turns, because I was in As the World Turns before Cujo, believe it or not, since the age of like 1.5. And they invited me to audition. And I don't actually remember the audition at all. I don't remember anything about it. But I got the job. So there you go.
Thank God.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, every day I woke up, I went, thank you God you gave me this kid. Because I'm serious. Because the whole film was me really, the core of the film was me with this little boy and a dog. And if he hadn't been who he was and been so present and so adult in that performance, it would not be the movie we have. So, kudos to that.
How about you, Daniel?
I don't remember all that much. I remember reading the book, and I liked the book a lot. I had met with Peter Medak, who was the original director, and when they asked me to do it, I was on it. I was very excited that Dee was going to be in it. She had a wonderful reputation as an actress.
Thank you.
In Hollywood, prior to that. And I liked the people that were involved. And then I met Gary on it, and I ended up living with him for 2 years. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Gary, talk about your unique involvement in Cujo.
Well, I was one of Hollywood's go-to animals. I played the kangaroo in Matilda. I played an orangutan. I did a dog in something else. I was like the animal guy. So when this came up, I had an audition for it. It was very silly because the trainer was there too, and he was training me like a dog, to attack. I was on my hands and knees with no suit on and jumping on this guy and attacking him and barking. It was so silly. I went home, said to my wife. My wife said, "What do you think?" I'm like, I don't know. I was like attacking this guy in the office. And there was a few other animal actors up for it, but Dan Black seemed to like what I did and my energy, and
he has no energy, as you've seen from the convention.
Danny, we felt so bad for you. You were terrified every day to the point that I had 2 little kids at the time that came to visit. My wife would go, that poor kid, he wakes up every day and you're just terrified and screaming and crying. I wondered if it scarred you for your life.
No, it was me that was scarred.
People ask me that all the time, like, how scarred for life were you doing the movie? And honestly, like, I was acting, and that's how, like, Dee would say, every take she would say, it's just a movie and we're just filming, the dogs are really nice.
Always the mom,
Yeah. And I would say to her, okay, are we gonna do another of that take, or are we moving on to something else? But
Again, thank God I got this kid.
But I guess that's sort of attests to, like, everyone I've ever met always thinks that I would just be absolutely traumatized just from the performance. And that's a good thing to be able to take with you,
Probably you haven't read the book, but the rest of our panelists have read the book before you
I
did
had
the
not
movie.
read
Oh,
the
you
book.
had? Oh, okay. But Daniel, you did.
I did. I really liked it. It was the first and only Stephen King book I had ever read. And I was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed it.
What did you hope that the movie would retain from the book?
Not the ending.
How many folks have read the book and know how it ends?
know.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, in the book, if you don't mind me ruining it for you, he dies. The little boy dies in the book.
There were a lot of big discussions, and I said, Ann, we can't ask moviegoers to go through 2 hours of what we're going to put them through. We killed the kid in the end. And fortunately, a lot of people agreed with me. And Stephen King actually wrote us afterwards and said, "Thank God you didn't kill the kid." I guess he got more hate mail than he had ever received on anything else for that.
Danny, how did your folks, gear you up for making this film?
They were as excited as I was to be there. And that's the weird part about my early career as an actor was that I just sort of did it. I don't know how else to explain it. Like when I was on As the World Turns, I'd been on that already for 3 years. We were living in New Jersey, and we would travel an hour every day to Manhattan to go to the set for this soap opera. And that was a soap opera. I legitimately spent every time I was on camera just crying about some awful, There was one point when they kidnapped me and my mom and took us to Spain. There was a part when somebody set our house on fire, locked us in the closet, and they literally set the set on fire, which was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. But crying, dying, smoke in the closet. It's a soap opera. So going from that to Cujo was a piece of cake. But I don't have long conversations or stories where my mom would sort of prop me for the acting part of it. It would just be, okay, you know what scene this is, go do your thing. Do you have more stories than that in terms of how I...
No, and I gotta say I really appreciated that about your mom, because the more moms don't mess with kids, the better they are, and the more open they are. We improv a lot, and kids, it's just, let's go play, let's play pretend. They don't make it the big deal that a lot of adult actors do. So a lot of that we had to really improv around what the dog did too.
Gary, talk about the breakdown between the real dog and the costume dog. That was a pretty seamless combination.
When I watch the movie, sometimes I can't tell when it's me and not. But whenever you saw the star being attacked, the face, the scar, it was me in the suit. When you saw the real dog, it was the dog attacking either the trainer or a stunt person. And they cut it back and forth, like, me and then the real dog, and then when you saw Dee's face, or what was the big sheriff's name? I forgot that I killed. He was a big guy, and he was fighting me so hard that I couldn't stay next to him. So they wired me to his chest. You know what I mean? And he grabbed a hold of my head and he lifted me literally off the ground as he was thrashing about. I was like,
That was you? I thought that was a dog.
no, that was me thrashing me around, and then it was the real dog. Can I tell a fast story? How the first time the producer saw the dog being put through his thing, they brought me in too, because I had to watch the dog. And the trainer, a guy named Carl Miller, who trained...
Fabulous.
Trained like the Amazing Dobermans, all these famous dog movies, was Carl Miller. Anyway, so the producer, the director, it was like show and tell time. So they have the dog, and they chain the dog up to a chain link fence. Now, the trainer goes behind a car, and he says to me, "Help me get this on." And he puts on this dog attack suit, like blankets, you know what I mean? This attack suit, and this horrible Halloween mask, with like hair. It was just a terrible mask. And he says to me, "He won't recognize me like this." He jumps out from behind the car and goes, "Ah!" And the dog goes berserk, okay? And it's like the Mack truck. The dog is like straining against this chain link fence. And he says, "Turn him loose." And they turn this dog loose, and it lopes across the field and attacks the trainer to the point where you're going, "Oh my God, he's like a rag doll." The dog had him with his attack suit and shaking him. And he finally goes, "Get him off of me." And the other trainers come in and they pull this dog off. And I'm looking like, what am I getting myself into? And the producer and the director look at each other going like, "Oh yes, that was very good. That was kind of interesting." It was one of the crazier shoots with the dog.
The big attack scene in the car, which goes on like forever, I wanted to do that myself, because I do a lot of my own stuff in the movie. And they were gonna let me, and the day of, Dan Black comes in and says, yeah, I've changed my mind, you know, if you get hurt. I said, I'm not gonna get hurt, Dan. I can do this. No, if you get hurt, you know, we go up and there's a lot of money at stake. So the big attack scene in the car is Gary and me, and then the stunt woman and the real dog. And the dog was trained, the stunt woman had this toy around her neck. And when she would lunge forward, that was the dog's cue to lunge forward and get her. And then as soon as she pulled back, the dog would pull back. That's how well trained they were. So we did our thing, and then they brought the stunt girl on, the real dog. They finished, got it like in one take, and Lewis said, yeah, we got it. And before somebody could get their hand on the dog, she went, yes!
Oh, no.
And the dog went, yes! And bit her nose off. Now, it's all right, they got it put back on. But that, you know, Dan came up and I said, okay, just don't even say it.
And Dan looked at you and went, that's why.
Yeah, he did. And he was right, but
We all went to the hospital to visit her with Band-Aids on our noses. And she's going, don't make me laugh. Like the cat, were you in on that?
I don't think I was in on this.
The whole stunt team had bandaged our nose when we went to visit her.
Oh, that's great, that's great.
Danny, do you remember with the dog anything that really stands out that gave you the willies?
That gave me the willies. Well, the one thing that stands out that everyone else thinks gave me the willies, which didn't really, was the dog got in the car once, and it was a moment. But you know, yeah. But I was like, oh, can I pet it? Like, I wasn't ever allowed to go near the animals.
Yeah, we couldn't.
Yeah, so the idea that was like, oh, he's here. Like, can I? But like the dogs were trained to
Go after
it was like this
toys.
toy thing.
Yeah.
It was like a mouse, and they would put that in the car and then tell the dog to get the toy. So the dog was trying to get the toy. In every scene, it was I knew as an actor that they weren't trying to get us, they were trying to get that toy. And so I was laughing because he got the toy. Meanwhile, everyone else is like pulling us out and like freaking like, and I was like, oh, there's a toy.
Well, my first instinct was always protect the kid, you know, as the character NSD, protect the kid. So, but those dogs were so incredibly well trained after those toys. You'll see in the movie, if you rewatch it again, a lot of times you can see their tails wagging because it was all a big game to them. So many people are so worried about, oh my God, those poor dogs, and were they mistreated? No, they were not mistreated. Sometimes maybe overworked a little bit, but that's why there were so many of them. Now there's an argument about how many dogs. How many do you think there were?
I always thought there were 3, and Cubby was the biggest dog I had ever seen in my life. And I really lucked out. I didn't have any scenes with those dogs.
He was on top of me dead.
This
Yeah.
dog was
Huge.
something to behold.
Yeah.
I'm serious about that. I only had one scene when I drove up to the ranch and actually saw the dog. And John and Lewis had set up this great shot. And this dog came over that ridge, and I was like, dear God, that thing is huge. And if I may, for a second, and I had mentioned this one time before, a dog that size, to be that close to your star, a beautiful woman who's very talented, and the movie would probably would not have been made. It certainly would have been a different movie had it not been for Dee. And a little boy, to be that close to that size of a dog. I know I was mauled when I was in 2nd grade by a dog in the neighborhood. And I would always have, since then I've had a kind of thing about it, but this dog was huge. And for the stress level up for the director and Dan Black, it had to be through the roof. I mean, it was not an easy shoot. Like I said, I went to LA, I had never been to LA before, so while they were shooting that, I went down that way. I thought there were 3 dogs.
Well, the last time Lewis and I were together, he said there were 8 to 13 dogs. Now, Gary, don't
Maybe
you
they
think
auditioned
you would have
13
known?
dogs.
What?
Maybe they auditioned 13 dogs, but there was Mo, Cubby, Daddy, a jumping dog, and the Labrador.
Well, the Labradors, yeah, but.
In the dog
yeah,
suit,
yeah.
but they never really used
The
it.
dog
they
in
had,
the dog suit,
They had a
yeah.
Labrador in a dog suit. in case the St. Bernard wouldn't attack. And the dailies up there were so funny because it looked like the dog was, it had this big suit on. And at one point during the dailies, the dog is thrashing about and the head goes flying off. And you see the St. Bernard costume with a Labrador's head. And before they would be taken, and the Labrador's nose would come out of the dog costume, and you'd see the trainer would like smack it and would pull its head back.
I had
Those
thought-
dailies were great.
I had thought that the dog that came through the window at the end,
That was
I
me.
thought that was you. I thought.
Now,
that
see,
was-
Lewis has a whole different story
Lewis?
about that.
Not true. Well, I don't know how many, maybe there's 13 dogs in contention.
Well, no, but Lewis said they finally got one of the St. Bernards to come through the window, which is an entirely different story than you told me
They
yesterday.
would not, that dog, they tried, listen, they had put a ramp up to this window, and the dogs jumped right through it, no problem. Then they put screen where that was cut, dog jumped right through it. Soon as they put the glass, the dog would run up the ramp and stop.
Well, they're not dumb.
I did everything the dog was too smart to do. Like ram your head into a car door. But anyway, like each dog, it would be like take 12 and it would stop. Then one dog would run up, stop, and then just break the glass. Then they had to put the glass back in. Dog number 3, take 10, the producer went, get the kid in the suit. And I actually broke through the glass, and then they had the dog landing, and they threw a little broken glass.
Well, again, it's
You
incredible
actually went through it.
editing then, because it looks, the shot coming through the window looks like the real dog. I mean, it's the real dog.
And I think we have that clip. Maybe we'll
Oh, yeah?
show you guys. Want to see a classic clip from Cujo?
Oh,
It's that scene. Let's turn the light on.
Let's see who can find Gary. While they're queuing that up, right before the dog got in the car, the producer said to Danny, "You're safe in the car. The dog can't get in the car as long as you're in the car."
And what happens?
The very next day, the dog was in the car with him.
Cars were broken. I was not giving you a car.
So we don't have any image.
Well, you gotta start it over though, because the
Too
build
hard
up to it.
was. Cars were broken. I was not giving you a car. Come in. Damn this car. Too hard was. Oh, I can't get it. Whoa.
Oh, and I caught his paw.
Break it down for us, guys.
My favorite part is watching the audience because people always jump
I'm sure.
during that moment when the dog first.
Well, and the sound and everything. Okay, so the first day on the set, the first scene, Lewis.
Microphone.
Sorry. The first day, the first shot on the scene, Lewis comes up and he goes, Dee, we're wondering if we could maybe use the dog in the master shot, and then for all your close-ups and everything, somebody can just stand in for the dog. Uh-huh. So I said, okay, let's try it. So we go to do that scene, and Lewis is out there going, "Rawr, rawr, 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 rawr." And the whole crew is cracking up. Danny is hysterically laughing. I'm going, Liz, I don't think this is gonna work. It's just because the visual and the sound and everything of the dog, you really didn't have to act much, you know? It just added so much to it. But they wanted to save the dogs and not overwork the dogs. Okay to overwork us, not the dog. But we ended up using the dogs off camera also.
Dee said to me one time, she said, it would help me if you would growl and bark while you're laying on top of me attacking me. So I did.
Oh, ever the actress.
And of course I was helping the director constantly in the dog suit.
How old were you, Gary, when you made the movie?
When I did that,
Not old enough.
I was 32 when we shot that.
I would be like
You were 14.
emotionally crazy getting ready for a shot, and I'd hear Dee, psst, and I'd look over, and here's the Pinto, and here would be Gary. Going, dude, I'm trying to get into this, right?
I think my favorite scene in the whole movie was because, well, first of all, how they did it was the coolest. But there's this shot when just after she gets bit, where she's passing out, and the car is sort of open, and I'm alone crying, and she's trying to tell me to relax, but to be, you know, it'll be okay. And they installed like a camera that turned 360, which back then was, I mean, nowadays you're like, oh, that's
Oh, that
camera
shot,
work.
but it was really innovative back then.
Really, yeah, they had to drill holes, and then they had this camera, and the shot was just her passing out and me screaming, and the camera spinning around ferocious. I just think it's so cool, really, really cool cinematic stuff, yeah.
I feel like a director of this film, Louis Teague, is really underappreciated in Hollywood. I think.
For sure.
Yeah, talk about working with Louis, maybe an anecdote, or why you know his direction of this film has been so
You know,
powerful to this.
If there's a word that I would use to describe Louis, it's gentle. Yeah, very gentle. You know, he's like genius. He's so smart. But he's just a kind, gentle, creative man. You agree?
He wasn't so gentle when I was humping his leg, I gotta tell you.
Gary.
I remember it, because it was a really, really difficult shoot for me. You know, I was just in fight or flight the whole time. And it was very extremely cold.
It's supposed to be middle of summer, sweating, but it was
Yeah.
freezing.
November in Northern California. And I looked over at Danny one time, and he's sitting there going, I said, guys, you gotta put a heater or something in the front of the car, right, for us. But it was really a tough shoot for me, and they would pick me up at 5 a.m. Sometimes they would leave the set a lot of times till 8 or 9. And I lost it one day. I can't even remember what it was about. I lost it and very dramatically stomped off to my trailer. Louis had said something to me, and it just had pushed me too far. And I went to my trailer, and I was sitting there sobbing, and I hear a knock on the door, and I opened the door, and there's Louis, and he looked up at me, and he said, I'm sorry. You really don't. This is not typical Hollywood, you know what I mean? I'm sorry too! He said, are you all right? Well, I'm all right! Just give me a few minutes! But that moment, for me, really represents Louis.
Daniel, do you have a moment that symbolizes everything that Louis is?
Because I was hired in New York and had never been to LA, when I went out there and then they got into these it was obvious. It was my first feature film, but it was obvious this was going to be an incredibly difficult shoot for these people up at that ramp. I mean, the scenes and the cuts, the setups that had to be done, this was going to be rough. So as I said, I having never been to LA, I came down for a couple of weeks while they shot that. And when I went back, I remember running into Louis in the lobby of the hotel up in Santa Rosa, and he looked like a changed man. It was, I mean, he was still, like Dee said, very gentle, very smart, very easygoing. He didn't seem to get upset, but it looked like to me, having not seen him for a couple of weeks, that this was a strenuous shoot on him. And then when I saw him for the first time again, 4 or 5 years ago, he was back to, I remember, he was a sweet, sweet guy.
Hey, how about some questions from our audience? On Cujo, we have a mic here in the front, so.
Do we have a light?
Yeah.
Can we light up? Audience, so we can see him?
So my apologies for going off topic just a little bit, but Danny, you mentioned you were on As the World Turns. And Daniel, I remember you because I watched the show from '88 to 2010 when it went off the air. But I don't remember your character, Danny. Did you play Paul Ryan?
I'm the original Paul Ryan, which when I was Samming, his name was Paul Stenbeck, because that was the original name of Colleen Zank, and that whole, yeah. So I was the very first Paul Ryan.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Oh, come on, you guys, you know you have questions.
Yeah, come on.
What happened to the pinto?
Who the hell cares? I don't know, it was in parts the last time I saw
Well,
one.
I was saying that too. Like there was at least one of them that they cut in half so that they could film,
Yeah.
both sides, and there was one that had the engine removed so they could film all
So
those
they could
great
put your
shots
heater
when they
in.
were and the heaters. And then we destroyed the other one. So I don't know.
Who knew? We should have all picked up mirrors and stuff. We could sell it and be rich now.
A piece of the pinto eye we have.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is anybody going to talk about the dog dying? That I just let the cat out of the bag? One of the dogs died during the movie.
Oh, I don't know that.
The lead dog, the nice one, the one that we loved working with. The large dogs have a thing, it's like a gastrointestinal thing that just happens. It's called a twisted gut. And they went to the kennel one day and the A dog had died. So then
And
we
it
had to
wasn't
use the dog
because
that
of
was
anything that
mean.
happened on the set.
And it was nothing that they did and this was the trainer's personal dog. And his name was Cubby. And that the day that we had
I
the
was
dailies
beside
with Cubby,
myself.
everybody was like sobbing, coming up to the trainer and saying how sorry they were. And the stunt coordinator was kind of crazy. I went to shake the trainer's hand to say how sorry I was, and the stunt coordinator back at me was like, "Poor Cubby! Did they bury him in a cubby hole?" And I started to laugh, and he's going, "You're so insensitive!" And the stunt coordinator back at me was like making all these crazy Cubby jokes. But
I
then
mean, Dan was, he came to my trailer to tell me, and because I'm a huge animal lover, especially dog. And my knees kind of buckled. And he went, "You can work today, right?" I said, "Yeah, could I have like a half hour just, to kind of assimilate all this and go talk to Carl and everything." But I really took a hit about that.
the stunt department was really upset because that was the nice dog. The backup dogs were kind of mean and would really bite you. You know what I mean? So it was like the stunts are going.
I'm glad I
they
didn't
went,
know that.
Cubby's dead. We gotta work with Mo or Daddy. We're going.
So
"Oh,
who did
no."
I have dead on top of me that wasn't quite out?
The last scene, they tranquilized the dog. They had a veterinarian there, and they
Oh, my
tranquilized
God.
him. Literally tranquilized him, and they lifted this dog up like on a
No,
and put him on you.
Yeah, and then I've got almost this 130 pounds of dead dog on me, right? And he's not quite out, and so he keeps going. And then Louis T goes, "Can you lift him up and down me like you're fighting?" So I'm bench pressing. The saint in our dog who's sort of,
The dog did that. You screamed and freaked out because the dog was really still, and all of a sudden the dog went. "Roar." And
yeah,
you
because I'm like freaking into the scene. And that's the only time I kind of went over I'm not quite in control. And when I broke the glass, They told
Tell
me
that story, yeah.
I couldn't break that glass. They told me it was,
Candy glass, fake glass, yeah.
well, yeah, but they told, hit it really hard because we want to film it in slow motion. Hit it really hard. You can't break that glass. You can't break it. The third hit. When that scene that you saw earlier, you know, where I break it and I go, ah! That was, holy shit, what happened? So then I'm standing there, and we had rehearsed the whole thing through so we knew where we were going, but there's a minute there where this side of my head is going, get the kid, you broke the glass, the dog's coming, get the kid. And I'm going, I'm not supposed to go in there now. I wasn't supposed to break the glass. Get the kid! But you can't drag the kid over the glass. Get the kid! You know? So I go in, and instead of, because I was supposed to drag him out, and I'm going, I can't drag the kid out over the glass. So that's why there's this stupid waddle that I do to try and hold him up. And I get out, I still don't hear cut. So we run all the way up to the house. Finally, I hear cut. And Dan Black comes running in and says, are you okay? Are you okay? Well, I ripped my arm with the glass.
The gun had, wasn't it that the plastic part of the gun had broken off, and that's what hit the glass, and then that plastic part is what cut you, is what I heard.
I don't, all I know is, you know, and Dan says, oh my God, somebody, you know, bring in a
Medic.
well, and she put a bandage on that was kind of the same color, my arm. And he said, we can do it one more time, right? Because we're losing the light before you go to the hospital. And we did. We did.
I was actually in the car underneath the glass when she broke the glass. And that was really scary. That's one of the very, I was laying
Yeah,
there.
because I went in and got it.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. Because I also knew she can't break it. You know, they're gonna change it out in the next one. She can't break it. Next thing I know.
I swear to God, I think everybody behind the camera was like, and
Yet saying, keep going, keep going.
yeah, I guess. We have some questions.
Actually, it's a comment. In 1988, I had 3 sons, 5,
Start
7,
over.
and 9.
Start over.
Okay, 1988, I had 3 sons, 5, 7, and 9. And my husband used to work graveyard and overnight, and so I was basically the mom. When I saw that movie, somehow I said, my God, I'm a mom. I can do this as long as a big ass dog doesn't come in my life. But it just overwhelmed me with the motherhood,
Thank
power
you.
of motherhood.
Yes, thank
You
you.
will do whatever it takes to save
Whatever.
your children. And so for that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My 2 boys brought me to this thing.
Daniel, you mentioned Peter Medic was the original director
Right.
attached to this movie. He directed
Oh, yeah.
The Changeling. How come he didn't wind up directing, and what was his take on the material?
Well,
ahead.
Peter had directed, what I knew, he had directed The Royal Family with Peter O'Toole. And I was just very excited about working with him. As I said, he hired me out of New York. I don't know why it happened. I remember Tony Richardson, I think he was the original DP, told me. And I don't know. I mean, Lewis, and I had said this before, for a director, any director, but particularly for this film, for a director to come in a little late, having missed pre-production stuff, is a real challenge. And Lewis certainly meant it. You know, Lewis was just a wonderful director, a wonderful man. But yeah, I really don't know. That was above my pay grade. I didn't.
Well, I
don't
do
why.
know that Dan Blatt had originally wanted Lewis, and so they had had some previous meetings. And then other financiers came in and brought in Peter, And we got there the first day when I arrived, and I don't know, Peter just had an entirely different vision than I signed on for. He saw all this sexual stuff throughout the whole movie. He wanted me to wear a kind of a see-through blouse without a bra, and I'm going, no, I did E.T. Okay? I don't do stuff like that. And I went to Dan, and Dan went, what? So it sounded like they didn't really have a lot of production meetings or weren't on the same page. I don't know. But that's the story I got. And so, because we all know that Peter Maddox's a brilliant director, there's no disputing that. But just not for this film.
Wait a minute, that first week heads were rolling, and it was like a real insecure because they fired one of the actors that played the owner of Cujo before they brought Mills Watson in. There was another actor that had the role. It was about 3 people, and even, I think, looking at DBI, knew Jan Duban, who became a good director. Wasn't he the second?
No, he was the DP that they brought in.
Yeah. But there were like 4 people that got fired that first week, and a lot of us were looking at each other going, like who's next? You know, but they, because a whole contingent went with Peter Medic, you know.
Question here?
Yes, just 2 questions actually. One for Gary. You almost about answered the question. I thought the big guy that you were tussling with in your Cujo suit was Mills Watson.
No, that's another one. That was the Mills Watson was like the owner of Cujo. I'm talking about the sheriff that came and like that died in the barn.
You know, it looks like when you watch the scene, it looks like you're almost doing a dance with him.
My feet were off the ground. He was thrashing me around.
Killer tango, I guess.
Somebody Google who the sheriff was.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Wasn't Robert Craighead, was it?
The other question that I have for Danny and for Dee, watching that scene, Cujo attacking, it looks like you're almost more, Danny, terrified of Dee mauling you as she's like shoving you to the, to the seat. You have a look on your face like, you die. Did you survive that, with a fair amount of bruises?
There were lots of bruises as we went along, that's for sure, yeah.
And cuts and,
Yeah, but that's part of the nature of it. We were so in it too that, you don't even know that stuff's happening because you're so in the moment.
Yeah. You know it the next day. I can tell you I blew out my adrenals. Yeah, they treated me for exhaustion for a couple of weeks after the movie.
You know, when you talk about the toy, while they were doing these scenes, there was a woman trainer with a little hamster cage with a piece of fur in it. They called it the critter cage.
Yeah.
They called it the critter. And while they're doing it, they're doing the scene, and the trainer is like this with the critter cage. The dog is on the hood, and the trainer's like meow, meow, shaking the critter cage, and the dog is like trying to get them and laying at their feet in the car, shaking this critter cage, and they would go dig it up, dig it up. And the dog was trying to get through the windshield to get to this toy, you know.
Yeah, and we have to hold our focus on the drama. It was challenging.
The great American character Ed Lauder was in the film. Daniel, you had some scenes with him. What do you recall of working with the great Ed?
I worked with Ed several times after Cujo, but I met him on Cujo, and we became very close. We were very good friends. And how that happened is I was, not long after Cujo, I was doing this series, and during the pilot, I had to fight Ed. He was the bad guy. We were shooting in Vegas. And he always had an enormous protrusion. He had a big nose. And I had done a lot of stunt fights before, but it was the first and only time in my career that I actually caught the actor. And I felt so bad, because you get into it, you don't want to do that. And he and I became very, very tight. And unfortunately, he passed. And that was really sad.
That was
He was
a
just a
huge loss.
wonderful actor and a great guy.
And gentle. Another gentle giant.
Stunt department, whenever the actor is going to throw a punch, it's always dangerous because they always hit you. You know, when they go, if the stuntman's having a fight, when they finally put the actor to throw a punch, you go, oh no, this is not going to go well.
And I got hit by an actor one time, the same thing. So it, what goes around comes around.
I got cold cocked.
By an actor, not by the stunt person.
With the success of the movie It, Hollywood's looking at revisiting a lot of the Stephen King properties.
Don't they frickin' dare.
Of course, Pet Sematary is coming out next year, and there's rumors that Cujo is being ready for a remake, and there's even talk that Kevin Smith would be directing it, counting values and experimenting with horror. Talk about, what would you do if they do these guys?
Oh, I sure as hell wouldn't go see the fucking thing. Really, CGI dogs. There's a thrill for you.
That's the thing that people love about it, is that there is nothing about it that's fake, and nothing about it that's CGI. And if they were, it would be awful. I can't imagine.
Well, I can't imagine it being any better than what we did. I'm sorry.
Proud is that.
So let's talk about what you folks have coming up next. We'll start with you, Terry.
I don't fall down hard anymore, but I'm done with Bob Balaban in a show right now called The Politician that's coming up. I gotta jump through a window on Thursday. I'm gonna go soon.
I've just been for the last year, I've been filming a movie in China, and I was just telling Dee backstage about it, and as with many other industries, the Chinese get a lot of support from the government, and they invite people from all over the world, businesses and stuff, and these guys are brought in, their companies send them to China, and after a while, the Chinese figure out, the company, what these individuals do, and then they don't need them anymore, and very often, they have by now, these expats, have now fallen in love and gotten married, but they have no job. And so they're available as actors in China. And China has been now for several years trying to really develop a Hollywood system. Because the box office, that's what was so incredible, is the box office, the money that can be made in terms of box office over there is just overwhelming. Not the entire country isn't doing as well as they like you to think it is. But where I shot in Qingdao, I also shot in Beijing and Changsha. The studios that they're building are 3 or 4 times the size of MGM. And that massive stage at MGM, as big as it is, I think it's the biggest one this country has. On this one studio lot alone in Qingdao, there were 38 that big. And they were all brand new, all state-of-the-art stages. And yet, while I was there, this movie was the only one that was being shot. And we occupied 4 stages, so there were 34 empty stages. It was like being in a commercial park on Sunday, every day. You would walk out, you would look down this massive street. Anytime you go on a studio lot here, these guys will tell you that it's very busy. People are zooming around, you got actors, you got everybody. You got a commissary to hang out in. This is nothing like that. It's amazing what's going on over there. And I personally believe that a lot of this business will be moving to China. It's going to be hard not to. I had one last anecdote. The last night that I worked was only at the end of July, early August. I was talking with the director's assistant, and she told me that the movie had just pre-sold for $500 million. And I was like, you are kidding me. How are the people who bought it, how are they going to make any money? And she said, oh, this is going to do $1 billion.
in box office easy. And I it's like, what? And she said, oh, this will be like the third or fourth billion-dollar picture, only in the Chinese market. It's very different. You don't think, and I think everyone here will attest, and you guys know in your own line of work, things seem to change every 4 or 5 years. I mean, it seems to be a ground-shifting change. And I personally think within the next 5 years, it's going to be so much, you're going to have to go to China. I hope not, but I think it.
God, I haven't done any acting in a very long time. I live in Austin now, and I work for Austin Pets Alive, which is a no-kill animal shelter. APA, Austin Pets Alive, has brought the city of Austin to 99% no-kill in their regular, city-run shelters, because we take in everything else. I don't work with the dogs, unfortunately. I work with the sick cats. Basically a vet tech, and I take care of between 80 and 90 sick cats a day, feeding them, syringe feeding them, giving them fluids and medication and all that fun stuff. It's really satisfying, but it's really hard work.
Did your work on Cujo lead you to this job?
I've always loved pets, and I've always wanted to be a veterinarian, but I'm not smart enough to do that. I went to Stanford actually to be a veterinarian, and I made it through like about 3 weeks of the first initial, chemistry classes before I had to fail out because my brain is not that side. Left brain, whatever it is, I'm not. I just don't have it. So I'm creative. So 20 years later, I'm trying to figure out what to do with myself in Austin and sort of find my new path. And I thought, well, let's try to get back to being a veterinarian, even though So I found this amazing job, and I love every minute of it. You can attest from the scratches that I have all over my arms from the cats.
Nice. And Dee, what's next for you?
Well, I've had a stupendous year. I have 5 movies coming out. One is, thank you. One, of course, that most of you know about is Rob Zombie's 3 from Hell. And I just finished NCIS, which should be on the end of October. And I have to tell you, Mark Harmon is the nicest, most beautiful man I've ever met. No, he's just really a beautiful person. And everybody on that set was just amazing. I'm doing a TED Talks in October, which has been a really big goal of mine. And I don't know, most of you probably know I have a whole healing practice too, where I teach energetic healing, so I'm very busy with that too. So a very cool, exciting life.